What's the most spectacular way you've seen someone fuck up at work? My coworker sold someone an auto insurance policy, but forgot to check the effective date. Turns out she had pushed the start date of the policy out a month. Guy got into an accident a few days later. Cumulatively, we probably spent 10 plus hours on the phone trying to get claims to cover this guy's accident. She ended up messing up the effective date on about 10 other policies before she left. I work at a phone store and we have a similar issue when we change someone's account. The default is to set it up on the next billing cycle, but most people come into the store hoping to see results immediately. The problem is that once you set it for next billing cycle, it's next to impossible to switch it to take effect on the current day. When I got my cell plan changed, the sales guy told me about a dozen times that your bill this month will be $X. Your bill next month will be $Y. Your changes won't go into effect until the next billing cycle. Now I know why. Water plant operator. Imagine, if you will, that a lot of water plants use gas chlorine as a disinfectant for their water supply. Now, imagine what would happen if a chlorine cylinder ran out. The operator did not hear a literal fire truck like horn sounding signifying said emptiness, and C not catching it for so long that the chlorine residual for the plant went from good to zero, all in a 6-hour period, unnoticed. The alarm horn. Some aircraft have a warning horn if the landing gear isn't down below a certain speed. It's to prevent gear up landings. Help prevent, that is. So after a gear up landing, the pilot was asked why he didn't lower the landing gear. He was distracted by this loud horn, you see. I run a water plant. I bet the health department came down like a ton of bricks. This and overfeeding fluoride keeps me up at night. As somebody that works in wastewater, these are the topics of my nightmares. I'd say falling asleep at your cubicle is pretty bad. Like consistently, according to the people around her. I was on vacation the week she got canned, but apparently she cried leaving the building. Kinda sad. She's really young, so hopefully she can bounce back and not have it hinder her career. Sounds like she's got sleep apnea. My boss used to fall asleep at his desk almost every day until he had a sleep study done and got a CPAP. In her case, I don't think that was it actually. She was an intern, and while interns are usually college students, she was actually in high school technically, or high school age at least, doing some kind of early college program. I think she was just unprepared for the working world. It's really too bad. I found out later that she sometimes biked something like 8 to 9 miles to work when she couldn't get a ride, so she would have been getting up really early. Our department really should have tried to work something out. I accidentally cancelled an entire day's worth of trips for my company. Took the provider services manager, the supervisor under her, and me 2 hours to fix. The only saving grace is we're the small office. If my equivalent at either of the other offices had done it, it would have been 6 to 10 times as much work, and would have functionally stone-aged the facility for at least 2 business days. It did highlight an exploit glitch in the system. Cancellations are supposed to require multiple keystrokes to complete for each one, and shouldn't be possible in bulk. I did 125 with 2 clicks of a drop-down menu and 1 click of a cancel same day button. Hey guys, I found a glitch in the system. It's pretty serious. What's it do? This. That's basically what happened. I got to call the provider services manager at 8 PM, explain what happened, and got this as concerning as my response. Hired a guy with a CDL. He said I've been driving trucks longer than you've been alive, kid. When I asked if he was experienced driving a 13-speed dump truck, 30 minutes later my phone rings. Says my truck is broke down. He burnt up the motor not shifting correctly. I show up, I see the truck is smoking, and the fans aren't on. I lost my cool 35k mistake in your first hour on the job. Nice. Lol, that response during hiring, I'd have sent him out the door, but you probably needed a driver like now. It's so hard to find good 450 drivers right now. We pay about 10% higher than average for a local route driver, and I've still been constantly hiring to fill 2 positions for the past couple years. We've hired and then fired 6 people in that time. Is it worth it to get into the industry? I've thought about it, but the size of things like freight trucks make me rather nervous. I worked at a below grade underground only waterproofing company. Being the most senior employee at the time, the owner asked me to check up on the new crew, who were working on a residential house's foundation. He told me he went out the day before and chalked the grade lines on the foundation so it would be easy for them to spray the tar on, and just wanted me to make sure they had the right thickness applied as well as proper coverage. I arrived at the site to discover that they did not understand what was to be done and had sprayed from the chalk line up to the top of the foundation walls. I had to give the new guys CR though. They had to grind all the tar off down to clean concrete, and it took them about a week. They didn't complain once and genuinely felt bad. I'm glad you said what the low grade meant. I might have gotten it from the story, but I probably would have walked away thinking you work for a below average company. Guy drops a glove in a deep fryer, sticks his entire hand in it before realizing it's on and set to 350 degrees F. My current job is a lab technician at a major university, and we had a new guy unplug the small -80°C freezer full of recombinant DNA because he wanted to charge his phone. Oh, yikes. I remember when I worked as a lab tech and another tech overfilled some of the wells in our stock DNA sample tray, contaminating all of the other wells. Then she just wiped off the excess and didn't tell anybody. Not only did we have to travel several hours to another university to get new DNA samples, but we had to throw out several weeks worth of work since we'd unknowingly been using contaminated samples. We used a faulty lysis buffer for our samples for a period of 3 weeks and had a similar thing happen. Yeah, I got one. Unfortunately it was me, so I had a placement in our hospital's laboratory. On my second day I had to fill up the documents with the results of the blood tests of one patient. One co-worker watched me. I was so nervous that I mixed up the pen and the blood sample, so when I thought I pulled off the capsule of the pen, I actually pulled off the capsule of the blood sample. I was so into it that I just noticed it was the wrong when I started writing, but then it was too late and all the blood spilled out all over my hand and the table and of course the document. BTW, I didn't wear gloves, but fortunately it was just from a cancer patient, so I didn't get infected or anything. Correcting. How did your coworker not call you out for not wearing gloves? If you were just using a pen, then I understand, but you were also handling blood samples. Worked at Kings Island Amusement Park as a games associate. Basically I stand at a booth and give change, then let people try to win rigged games. We get $500 in assorted bills before we start. Well, on my first day some girl lost all the money she was given and was bawling her eyes out while talking to a manager. I appreciate the love, people, but let's keep the upvotes at 420. Kind of a dream of mine. Lol, now it's too low. She lost it right into her purse. That's actually kind of sad, poor thing. If it makes you feel any better, there's a non-zero chance that she stole it and used her tears as a defense mechanism to keep from being investigated. I've seen that exact thing happen. You use what bullets you have, if you know what I'm saying. My ex-roommate and I were planning a trip overseas. He got his time off approved, but forgot to turn in his PTO paid time off request. He had accrued 2 weeks of it and wanted to get paid while sitting on the beach. He waited until the last minute to turn it in, his last shift before our departure. Only problem is the PTO request form required a signature from the general manager, who was off that night. So what did he do? He forged his GM's signature and turned it into payroll. Like they wouldn't notice it looked different. Or like his GM wouldn't see the flag pop up in payroll and wouldn't remember that he definitely did not approve ex-roommate's request. Of course payroll confirmed with GM. GM said nah, I didn't approve that, and that's definition not my signature, and ex-roommate was fired within 24 hours. I'm a dishwasher at a busy restaurant downtown my town. I had to train a newbie of 16 years old. I knew him kinda well, so I went easy for the time being. We stack bowls up on a nearby table for servers, and I told him, don't stack more than 6, or the balance of the bowls will become unstable and they'll fall. He nodded and we worked. 30 minutes later I look at the bowls and towers of 14 high bowls were there. I immediately and carefully moved the bowls and told the newbie, bro, 6 high on the bowls. He said, I ran out of room. There was enough for the bowls we had stacked, and I showed him a shelf where he can put more. He nodded and went back to working 15 minutes later. Bowls fall, and imagine my surprise when I see him standing in the middle with a 10 high stack next to him. Bruh. A coworker received a promotion and a large raise. They were told they should thank the CEO as he initiated the entire promotion. My coworker went on a rant about not asking for any of it, so he's not thanking anyone, and it escalated from there. By the end of the day he was fired. My coworker actually turned a promotion into a termination. Dang, that's impressive stupidity. I can understand that some people are comfortable with their workload and refuse a promotion, but turning it into a termination. Yeeks, there's better ways to refuse. This reminds me of the Dave Chappelle "When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong" skit. I guess there's a difference between "thank me, you owe me so much now," and "Bob is to thank for this, make sure you talk to him." A whole rant is still overkill though. At an aluminum extrusion company, the press is basically a school bus sized Play-Doh spaghetti maker that runs at 1000 F. The shape coming out of it this day was a thick-walled rectangle hollow tube. Thick-walled shapes need to run slowly so the aluminum doesn't tear or shred the surface as it moves through the die. Of course, the goal is to push as much metal through per hour as possible. It cools, gets straightened, then cut into 45 lb 8-foot lengths. This shift had us approaching the end of a 20,000-pound order when someone at the saw crew looked at the inside of the hollow shape 100% tear out. The surface was like crazed pottery instead of smooth. The entire run was scrapped because the press operator never checked the metal coming out of the press. Half a shift wasted. I watched another firefighter open a hydrant too early during a training exercise. The idea is to drop your hydrant man off. He wraps the hydrant with the hose and the engineer drives away. The hydrant man then screws the hose to the hydrant and waits for the engineer to tell him to open the hydrant. He's supposed to wait because the engineer needs to hook the other end of the hose to the pump. We carry 1000 feet of 5-or supply hose on the top of our engine. There's a coupling every 100 foot. My buddy went ahead and opened the hydrant before the engineer could uncouple the section of hose he needed and hook up to the pump. Before he could run back and turn off the hydrant, about 700 feet of hose fired off the top of the engine, like a giant black snake firework, only weighing hundreds of pounds.